Please save our mother. She is in the ICU. He was shocked to see the crying twins calling his ex their mother. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Before anything else, I want you to feel this. I honor you. I cherish you. Each one of you is a precious part of my heart. You're not just viewers. You are my family, my comfort, my reason to keep going. Every time I create a story, I picture your smiles, your tears, your warmth, and I whisper a thank you for choosing to walk this journey with me. You've stood by me in silence, in storms, in sunshine. You've given me your time, your trust, your love. And I don't take a single second of that for granted. I see you, I feel you, and I love you deeper than words could ever carry. If I've ever fallen short, please know it was never out of neglect. My heart beats with gratitude for each of you. You are my strength. You are the soul of Mr. Peter Stories. Before we begin, allow me to offer you this very sacred and beautiful prayer. May your home be filled with peace that cannot be shaken. May your heart overflow with joy that no sorrow can steal. May every dream in your soul begin to bloom like spring after a long winter. May you always be protected, guided, and wrapped in love, so much love that even your silent prayers are answered in full. You are worthy, you are precious, you are never alone. Now, my beloved family, let's begin. With all the love in the world. Brendan McKeon's Italian leather shoes echoed against the polished marble floors of Memorial Hospital as he strode through the main corridor. At 38, he commanded attention with his tailored charcoal suit and confident gait, the embodiment of success with his billion-dollar healthcare technology empire. Yet behind his steel blue eyes lurked an emptiness no amount of wealth could fill. We're thrilled you're considering funding our new children's wing, Mr. McKeon, Dr. Sharma said, struggling to keep pace with Brendan's long strides. Your contribution would revolutionize pediatric care in this region, Brendan nodded, offering the practiced smile that had graced countless business magazines. McKeon Enterprises believes in investing in the future, he replied, the words hollow despite their truth. Once he had spoken such phrases with passion, back when Jesse had been by his side, reminding him that business could change lives, not just balance sheets. 5 years. 5 years since he'd last seen her warm brown eyes, felt her delicate fingers intertwined with his. 5 years since she'd vanished without explanation, leaving nothing but a handwritten note. I'm sorry. I can't stay. Please don't look for me. He had respected her wishes, though every instinct had screamed to find her. Now, her memory was just another ghost haunting the corners of his empty penthouse. The current pediatric ward is this way, Dr. Sharma continued, gesturing toward a corridor branching left. As you'll see, we've outgrown. A sound cut through the hospital's sterile ambience, the unmistakable sob of a child. Then another, harmonizing in shared grief. Something about those cries pierced Brendan's carefully constructed armor, stopping him mid-stride. What's that? He asked, already turning toward the sound. Dr. Sharma glanced uncomfortably down the adjacent hallway. The intensive care waiting area. I apologize for the disturbance. Perhaps we should, but Brendan was already moving, drawn by an inexplicable pull toward those heart-wrenching sobs. As he rounded the corner, he saw them, 2 small children, huddled together on a waiting room bench, holding each other as tears streamed down their identical faces. A boy and girl, perhaps 6 years old, with caramel skin and curly dark hair, wearing matching blue school uniforms, now rumpled from hours of waiting. A nurse knelt before them, offering tissues with a sympathetic smile. It's going to be all right. Sweethearts, the doctors are taking very good care of your mommy. But when will she wake up? The little girl asked, her voice catching on each word. She always wakes us up with kisses. Who's going to wake her up? The question, so innocent and devastating, struck Brendan like a physical blow. Without conscious thought, he found himself approaching, kneeling beside the nurse to meet the children at eye level. "Hello there," he said, his voice gentler than it had been in years. "My name is Brendan." The twins looked up with wide, tear-filled eyes, hazel eyes with distinctive flecks of gold around the pupils. Eyes he recognized from countless mornings, waking beside them, from the photograph he still couldn't bring himself to remove from his bedside drawer. Jessie's eyes. "I'm Lily," the little girl said, with a hiccuping sob. "This is my brother Leo. Our mommy's very sick." "I'm sorry to hear that," Brendan replied, a strange tightness forming in his chest. "Is there someone here with you? Your dad, maybe? Or grandparents?" Leo shook his head, his small shoulders slumping. "It's just us and Mommy. She says we're a perfect triangle of love. But triangles have 3 points, and now it's just us two." The nurse stood, touching Brendan's shoulder. "Mr. McKeon, I should explain. These are the Liu twins. Their mother was brought in this morning after a serious car accident. She's in critical condition in the ICU. The name hit him like a thunderbolt. Liu. How many Jessie Lius could there possibly be in this city? And these children with those eyes? Liu, he repeated, his voice barely audible. Jessie Liu? The nurse nodded, surprise evident on her face. "Yes, do you know her?" Know her. He had loved her with every fibre of his being, had planned to. Proposed the very weekend she disappeared from his life. We were, what were they? Girlfriend seemed too trivial, ex too dismissive for the woman who still occupied his dreams. Close once. May I ask what happened? Drunk driver ran a red light this morning after she dropped the twins at school. Hit her car on the driver's side. She's suffered significant trauma and hasn't regained consciousness. Brendan's mind raced, calculating the timing with business-like precision, despite his emotional turmoil. 6-year-old twins. Jessie had left exactly 5 years and 9 months ago. The math was undeniable, sending his world tilting on its axis. "Is anyone coming to stay with the children?" he asked, fighting to keep his voice steady as he looked at their small, vulnerable faces. Faces that somehow reflected his own features in subtle ways he hadn't initially noticed. "We've been trying to reach family, but Ms. Liu appears to be a single mother with no local relatives. Child Services has been notified, but that won't be necessary," Brendan found himself saying, though he'd made no conscious decision to speak. "I'll stay with them." Dr. Sharma, who had followed Brendan into the waiting area, cleared his throat. "Mr. McKeon, while your concern is admirable, perhaps we should continue our tour of the tour can wait," Brendan said, his tone brooking no argument. He reached for his phone, sending a rapid text to his executive assistant to clear his schedule indefinitely. The children were watching him with a mixture of confusion and hope, their tear-stained faces so trusting it made his chest ache. How many times had Jessie looked at him with that same trust? "You know our mommy?" Lily asked, a tiny frown forming between her brows, exactly where Jessie's appeared when she was puzzled. Brendan hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal. "Yes, from a long time ago. She's very special to me. She has a picture of a man she says was very special," Leo offered, his small hands fidgeting with a toy car pulled from his pocket. "She keeps it in her secret box and looks at it when she thinks we're sleeping. A picture. After all these years, she had kept a picture of him, just as he had kept countless memories of her tucked away, but never forgotten." "Would it be okay if I stay with you until we know your mommy is better?" Brendan asked, his voice thick with emotions he couldn't fully name. The twins exchanged a look, that silent communication unique to siblings who shared more than just birthdays. After a moment they nodded in unison. Leo scooted over on the bench, making space between himself and his sister. "You can sit in the middle," he offered solemnly. "Mommy says the middle is where the heart goes in our triangle." Brendan settled. Between them, feeling small hands slip naturally into his own, as if they had been waiting all their lives for his fingers to close around theirs. And perhaps they had. as the children leaned against him, their exhausted bodies seeking comfort. From the stranger with familiar eyes, Brendan stared at the ICU doors, beyond which Jessie fought for her life. 5 years of questions swirled in his mind, but one certainty emerged from the chaos. Whatever secrets lay between them, he would not leave these children, their children, alone. The business empire would wait. The meetings would be rescheduled. For the first time since Jessie had walked out of his life, Brendan felt something crack in the fortress around his heart, something that felt dangerously, wonderfully, like hope. Chapter 2. Beautiful Ghosts. Night had fallen outside Memorial Hospital, but Brendan McKeon remained vigilant in the waiting room, his suit jacket draped over Leo's small shoulders as the boy slept against his arm. Lily had finally surrendered to exhaustion as well, curled on the adjacent chair with her head resting on Brendan's lap. With tender care that surprised even himself, he gently stroked her curls that reminded him so much of her mother's. "Mr. McKeon?" A nurse approached quietly, careful not to disturb the sleeping children. "The doctor can give you an update on Ms. Lou's condition now." Brendan carefully extricated himself, making sure both twins were comfortable before following the nurse. His heart pounded against his ribs with each step toward the consultation room. 5 years of constructed defenses were crumbling by the minute. Dr. Martinez, the neurologist, greeted him with a solemn handshake. "Your family?" he asked, a clipboard tucked under his arm. The question hung in the air. What was he to Jessie now, to these children? Brendan hesitated, then straightened his shoulders. "Yes, I believe I'm the father of her children." The doctor's eyebrows raised slightly, but he continued professionally. "Ms. Lou suffered severe trauma in the accident. There's significant brain swelling, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding that required emergency surgery. We've induced a coma to give her brain time to heal." "Will she recover?" Brendan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's too soon to say. The next 72 hours are critical. If the swelling subsides without complications—" The doctor paused. "She's young and otherwise healthy, which works in her favor." Brendan nodded, processing the information with the same focus he applied to corporate acquisitions. "May I see her?" "Briefly. She's not conscious, but some believe patients in her condition can still hear loved ones." Loved ones. The phrase echoed in Brendan's mind as he followed Dr. Martinez through double doors into the ICU. Was he still that? Had he ever stopped? Nothing could have prepared him for the sight of Jessie lying motionless among tubes and machines. Her beautiful face was marred by cuts and bruises, her vibrant spirit hidden behind closed eyelids. The strong, independent woman who had challenged. His every assumption about life and love now seemed fragile as glass. "I'll give you a moment," the doctor said, stepping away. Alone with her, Brendan found himself speechless. How many conversations had he imagined having if he ever found her? Again, how many questions had remained unanswered? Now faced with the possibility of losing her forever before getting those answers, none of it seemed to matter. He reached for her hand, the same hand that had once traced patterns on his skin in the early morning light, that had gestured wildly when she was excited about a new book or idea, that had gently wiped away his tears the night his father passed away. "Jessie," he whispered, his thumb stroking her knuckles. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." This time, as the words left his lips, memories flooded back, not in chronological order, but in bursts of emotion and sensation. The charity gala where they first met, Jessie working as a caterer, accidentally spilling champagne on his $1,000 suit, her mortified expression followed by surprising defiance when he'd been dismissive. "It's just fabric," she'd said, those remarkable eyes challenging him. There are people in this city who don't have clothes at all, yet you're upset about a suit you'll replace tomorrow. Her boldness had stopped him cold, making him see himself through her eyes, privileged, entitled, disconnected from reality. Something about her perspective had shifted something fundamental in his worldview. Brendan blinked back to the present, his eyes burning with unshed tears. Their first date, when he'd expected to impress her with an exclusive restaurant reservation. Instead, she'd convinced him to eat at a small family-owned Vietnamese place, where the elderly owner had hugged Jessie like a daughter and fed them until they could barely move. "Wealth isn't what you own," she'd told him that night under the stars. "It's what you share, what you build, what you leave better than you found it." He'd been building his company according to that philosophy ever since, though few knew she was the inspiration behind his most successful innovations. The weekend trip to the beach, where they'd talked until sunrise about their dreams. His too. Create healthcare technology that would be accessible even in remote regions. Hers, to open a community arts center for underprivileged children. "I'll fund it," he'd promised impulsively. "When the time is right." "No," she'd said, surprising him. "I don't want it handed to me. I want to build it myself, brick by brick if necessary. That's how you know something matters, by what you're willing to sacrifice for it." Had that been a clue? Had she already been preparing to make her own sacrifice, Mr. McKeon? The nurse's gentle voice pulled him from his memories. "I need to check her vitals." Reluctantly, Brendan released Jessie's hand. "I'll be back," he promised, though she couldn't hear him. Returning to the waiting area, he found a social worker speaking quietly with a hospital administrator, both casting concerned glances toward the sleeping twins. "Mr. McKeon," the social worker approached, extending her hand. "I'm Claire Wilson from Child Protective Services. I understand you've been staying with the Liu children." "Yes," he confirmed, instantly alert to the potential threat of separation. "While we appreciate your concern, we'll need to place them in emergency foster care until their mother's condition stabilizes or until we can locate relatives." "That won't be necessary," Brendan stated firmly. "I have reason to believe I'm their father." Claire's professional demeanor didn't waver. "Do you have any legal documentation of paternity? Are you listed on their birth certificates?" "No, but—" "Then I'm afraid we have protocols to follow. The children's well-being, their well-being is precisely why they should stay with me," Brendan interrupted, keeping his voice low to avoid waking the twins. "They've just experienced a traumatic event. Placing them with strangers would only compound their distress." He pulled out his phone, scrolling quickly through photos before finding one of himself and Jessie from 5 years ago. "This is their mother and me. Our relationship ended shortly before the twins would have been conceived. Look at them. They have my eyes, my chin." Claire studied the photo, then looked toward the sleeping children with a trained observer's eye. "There is a resemblance," she acknowledged cautiously. "But without legal confirmation, I'll submit to a DNA test immediately," Brendan offered. "But in the meantime, I'm not leaving them." His tone left no room for negotiation. The same voice that had closed billion-dollar deals and transformed industries. But this wasn't business. This was something far more precious. The social worker's expression softened slightly. "I can arrange for an emergency custody order until paternity is established, but I'll need references, background checks. Call anyone you need to. Run any check. I have nothing to hide," Brendan said, pulling out his business card and handing it to her. "My company has contracts with the government, so I've been thoroughly vetted." As they discussed logistics, a small voice interrupted them. "Where's Mommy?" Lily asked, her eyes wide and frightened as she clutched the sleeve of Brendan's shirt. Brendan immediately knelt to her level. "Your mom is still sleeping, sweetheart. The doctors are taking very good care of her. Can we see her?" Leo had awakened too, still wrapped in Brendan's jacket that swallowed his small frame. Brendan looked questioningly at Claire, who nodded slightly. "Just for a minute," Brendan told them, taking each child by the hand. "She might not wake up right away, but I bet she knows you're there." As they approached the ICU, Brendan lifted each child to see through the window to Jessie's room. Their small faces pressed against the glass, hands splayed as if trying to reach through to her. "Why does she have all those tubes?" Leo asked, his voice trembling. "They're helping her body heal," Brendan explained gently. "Like how you need special tools to fix broken toys." Lily's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Who's going to take care of us until she wakes up?" The question hung in the air between them. The same question that had been haunting Brendan since the moment he'd heard their cries in the hospital corridor. "I will," he said, the words feeling right as they left his lips. "If that's okay with you both." The twins exchanged that silent communication again, a language only they understood. "Did you know our mommy before?" Lily asked, studying his face, with an intensity that reminded him painfully of Jessie. "Yes," Brendan admitted, choosing honesty. "We were very close friends a long time ago." "Why didn't you visit us before?" Leo's question was innocent but piercing. How could he explain what he didn't understand himself? That their mother had disappeared from his life without explanation, that he might have been their father all these years without knowing. "Sometimes grown-ups make complicated choices," he said carefully. "But I'm here now, and I'll stay as long as you need me." To his surprise, Leo reached up and patted his cheek with a small hand. "Mommy says everyone deserves a second chance." The simple statement, delivered with a child's unwavering conviction, threatened to crumble what remained of Brendan's emotional walls. Was that what this was? A second chance he'd never dared hope for? Later, after settling the twins in the hospital's family room with blankets and pillows from the nurse's station, Brendan sat watching them sleep. His phone buzzed incessantly with messages from his executive team about meetings and decisions requiring his attention, but for the first time in his career, the business empire he'd built seemed inconsequential. Instead, he found himself studying the faces of these children, searching for traces of himself in their features, wondering about all the moments he'd missed. First words, first steps, first days of school. A lifetime of memories he should have shared. Had Jessie kept them from him deliberately, or had she tried to reach him and failed? The questions circled like restless birds in his mind, but as he watched the gentle rise and fall of the twins' chests, he realized the answers mattered less than he'd thought. What mattered was that they were here now, these beautiful ghosts of a love he'd never truly buried. And whatever secrets lay between him and Jessie, whatever pain or misunderstanding had separated them, he was determined to be the father these children deserved, even if it meant rewriting every priority he'd lived by for the past 5 years. Chapter 3: Refuge of the Heart. Dawn broke over the city skyline as Brendan's private car pulled up to his penthouse building. He glanced at the rearview mirror, his heart constricting at the sight of the twins asleep in the back seat, their heads tilted together like small birds seeking warmth. After a night of negotiations with the hospital administration and child services, he'd secured temporary guardianship pending DNA confirmation of paternity. "We're home," he said softly, the word feeling strange on his tongue. His penthouse had always been a place, luxurious and impressive, but never truly a home. Now, looking at these sleeping children, he wondered if that might change. Leo stirred, first blinking owlishly at the towering glass building before them. "Is this where you live? It looks like a castle in the sky." Despite his exhaustion, Brendan smiled. "Something like that, though I'm afraid it's not very child-friendly." "So, you have toys?" Lily asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Not yet," Brendan admitted, "but we can fix that." The penthouse elevator opened directly into his living room, a masterpiece of modern design with floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture in shades of grey and black, and abstract art. Worth more than most people's houses. Nothing soft, nothing welcoming, nothing that suggested children had ever set foot inside. "Wow," Leo whispered, his small sneakers squeaking against the polished concrete floors. "It's like a spaceship." Brendan saw his living space through their eyes. Cold, sterile, impersonal. When had that become acceptable to him? Before Jessie, he'd surrounded himself with warmth and texture. After she left, he'd stripped his life to essentials, as if comfort itself reminded him too much of what he'd lost. "Are you hungry?" he asked, leading them toward the kitchen, all gleaming stainless steel and untouched appliances. He realized, with a pang, that he couldn't remember the last time he'd actually cooked here, rather than ordered in or eaten at restaurants. The twins nodded in unison, their eyes wide as they took in their surroundings. Brendan opened his refrigerator, finding it embarrassingly empty, some protein shakes, a bottle of champagne, and takeout containers. "I'll call for breakfast," he said, reaching for his phone. "What do you like?" "Mummy makes us pancakes on Fridays," Lily offered. "With faces." "Pancake faces. She uses bananas for smiles and berries for eyes," Leo explained matter-of-factly, "and whipped cream hair." The image of Jessie creating breakfast art for their children while he conducted multinational conference calls in this sterile space hit Brendan with unexpected force. How different their lives had been all these years. "I'll order something special," he promised, sending a quick text to his assistant. Miranda had been with him for 3 years, managing his life with ruthless efficiency. If anyone could handle an emergency breakfast delivery, it was she. While waiting, Brendan gave the twins a tour of the penthouse, increasingly aware of its unsuitability for children. Sharp-edged furniture, priceless art within grabbing distance. No safety locks on cabinets filled with crystal and liquor. "Where will we sleep?" Leo asked, his small hand trailing along the cool leather of Brendan's sofa. It was a question Brendan hadn't considered in the rush to bring them home. "I have a guest room," he said, "and we can shop for proper beds today." His phone rang. Miranda, no doubt wondering why her fastidious boss had suddenly disappeared from the corporate radar. "Brendan McKeon," he answered automatically. "Mr. McKeon, you missed the quarterly board meeting this morning." Miranda's crisp voice held a note of concern beneath her professional tone. "And you have the merger discussion with Nordic Health in 15 minutes. Should I reschedule?" Reality crashed back. The business empire didn't stop turning because his personal life had imploded. Thousands of employees counted on him, investors, partners, patients whose lives depended on McKeon Technologies. "Yes, reschedule everything for the next week," he said, watching as the twins explored his balcony, pressing their small faces against the glass to see the city below. "Something urgent has come up, sir." The shock in Miranda's voice was evident. In 5 years, Brendan McKeon had never voluntarily rescheduled a meeting, let alone an entire week. "I need you to arrange a few deliveries to my penthouse. Children's beds, clothes, toys." He hesitated, then added, "And breakfast, something with pancakes and fruit. Enough for 3. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "Children, sir?" "It's complicated, Miranda. I'll explain later. For now, I need those deliveries as soon as possible." After ending the call, Brendan joined the twins on the balcony. The morning sun illuminated the city beneath them, a sprawling testament to human achievement. Yet for the first time in years, Brendan found himself uninterested in the view he'd paid millions to possess. Instead, he watched the children, their expressions of wonder as they spotted a helicopter, their identical way of standing on tiptoes, to peer over the railing held securely by his hands around their waists, these small humans who shared his blood, who might have called him Daddy all these years if circumstances had been different. A knock at the door announced the breakfast delivery, a feast of pancakes, fruits, and pastries that made the twins' eyes widen with delight. The catering staff had followed his assistant's instructions perfectly, creating pancakes with fruit faces and whipped cream hair. "Just like Mommy's," Lily exclaimed, her earlier sadness momentarily forgotten in childish joy. As they ate, Brendan found himself studying them with growing fascination. Leo methodically separated each element of his breakfast before eating, just as Brendan had done since childhood. Lily spoke with her hands, gesturing expressively between bites. Jesse's mannerism exactly. They were like living puzzles, pieces of himself and the woman he had loved combined in ways he was only beginning to recognize. "Will Mommy get better today?" Leo asked suddenly, his fork pausing midway to his mouth. Brendan chose his words carefully. "The doctors are doing everything they can, but your mom's injuries are serious, so she needs time to heal." "How much time?" Lily persisted. "I don't know yet," Brendan admitted, "but we can visit her later today if you'd like." The twins nodded solemnly, and Brendan felt a surge of protectiveness so powerful it nearly took his breath away. These children, his children, were facing the possible loss of the only parent they'd ever known. Whatever complicated feelings he harbored toward Jesse for keeping them from him, he wouldn't let them face this fear alone. The day passed in a blur of deliveries and adjustments. Children's beds with colorful linens appeared in the guest room. Clothes in approximately the right sizes filled previously empty drawers. Toys transformed his minimalist living room into something approaching a home. Through it all, Brendan fielded urgent calls from his executive team, approving decisions and delegating responsibilities with half his attention, while his heart remained focused on the twins. Each time he glanced up from a business discussion to find them building a fortress from couch cushions or examining his collection of global artifacts with careful fingers, something shifted in his chest, as if pieces of himself long separated were slowly realigning. When his final call ended, he found Leo sitting cross-legged on the floor beside him, watching with solemn attention. "Are you the boss?" the boy asked. Brendan nodded, setting his phone aside. "Yes, I am." "Mommy says bosses have the most responsibility because they have to take care of everyone who works for them," Leo said, his eyes serious beyond his years. "A mom is very wise," Brendan replied, struck by how perfectly that reflected Jesse's worldview. "Is she a boss, too?" Leo nodded proudly. "She's the boss of the art center. She helps kids make paintings and sculptures and stuff. She works really hard. An art center. She'd achieved her dream after all." Pride mingled with regret in Brendan's chest. Pride in her accomplishment. Regret that he hadn't been there to witness it. "Do you like art?" he asked. "I like building things better," Leo admitted. "Lily's the artist. Mommy says she gets that from her daddy." The casual reference to himself, a father the children didn't know they had, sent a jolt through Brendan's system. Had Jesse told them about him? Or was he just daddy in the abstract? Before he could formulate another question, Lily appeared from the guest room, where she'd been arranging her new stuffed animals. "Can we go see Mommy now? I want to tell her about the pancakes." Brendan checked his watch. "Yes, it's visiting hours. Let's get ready." As he helped them tie shoelaces and wash sticky faces, Brendan was struck by how naturally these parental gestures came to him. He, who had built his life around boardrooms and balance sheets, found unexpected fulfillment in these simple acts of care. The hospital was quieter in the afternoon. The bustling morning activity settled into the steady rhythm of routine care. As they approached the ICU, Dr. Martinez intercepted them. "Mr. McKeon, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" Brendan's heart skipped a beat. "Is there news?" "Some encouraging signs. The swelling has reduced slightly, and her latest scans show improved brain activity." Relief washed over him like a physical wave. She's going to wake up? It's still too early for guarantees, but she's moving in the right direction. The doctor glanced at the twins, who were watching a therapy dog visit patients down the hall. Have you considered how to prepare them if recovery takes longer than expected? The question struck at Brendan's deepest fear, that Jessie might never wake up, leaving these children permanently in his care. Not that he wouldn't embrace that responsibility, but the thought of them losing their mother made his chest ache. I'm hoping it won't come to that, he said quietly. But yes, I'm preparing for all possibilities. When they entered Jessie's room, Brendan held each twin by the hand, steadying them for the sight of their mother, still connected to machines. To his surprise, they showed little hesitation, moving immediately to her bedside with the resilience unique to children. "Hi, Mommy," Lily whispered, standing on tiptoes to see better. "We had pancakes with faces today. And we're staying in a castle in the sky with your friend Mr. Brendan," Leo added, his small fingers reaching for his mother's hand. "He has really cool stuff but no toys, but it's okay because he bought us some." Watching them speak to her with such certainty that she could hear them, Brendan felt a tightness in his throat. He stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on each child's shoulder. "Your mum is very strong," he told them softly. "And she loves you very much." "How do you know?" Lily asked, her eyes serious as they studied his face. How did he explain what he knew of Jessie's heart? How she'd once stayed up all night to care for a stray kitten they'd found, or travelled across the city to deliver soup to a sick friend. How she'd always put others' needs before her own. "Because I knew her," he said simply, "and because she's made sure you both know how much you're loved. That's what matters most to your mom. Love." As if responding to the word, Jessie's monitors beeped slightly faster. The twins gasped, leaning closer. "She heard us," Leo exclaimed. Whether coincidence or true response, Brendan allowed himself to hope. Seeing Jessie again had reawakened feelings he'd thought long buried, not just the lingering hurt of her departure, but the profound connection they'd shared. A connection that had apparently resulted in these two remarkable children. As they left the hospital that evening, the twins unusually quiet after the emotional visit, Brendan found himself making a silent promise to the woman lying in that hospital bed. He would protect what she loved most, whatever it took. And perhaps, when she awakened, they might finally unravel the mystery that had kept them apart for 5 long years. Chapter 4. Letters of Lost Love. 3 days had passed since Brendan brought the twins to his penthouse. 3 days of rushed shopping trips for children's necessities, of improvised meals and bedtime stories read from hastily purchased books. 3 days of divided attention between urgent business matters and the infinitely more important task of caring for Leo and Lily. 3 days of hospital visits, of speaking softly to Jessie's unresponsive form, while the twins held her hands and told her about their adventures in Brendan's sky castle. On the 4th morning, Brendan sat at his kitchen island, reviewing quarterly reports while the twins ate breakfast. A business empire didn't run itself, and despite delegating more responsibility than he had in years, certain decisions still required his attention. Yet he found his focus repeatedly drifting to the children, to Leo's methodical arrangement of cereal pieces by color, to Lily's humming as she drew with the art supplies he'd had delivered. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Martinez. No. Significant changes overnight. Stable condition. Continued monitoring. The message brought both relief and frustration. Jessie wasn't worse, but she wasn't better either. The limbo continued. "Mr. Brendan?" Lily's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "We need more clothes and our special stuffed animals from home, and Leo's asthma medicine." Brendan set his tablet aside immediately. "Asthma medicine? Why didn't you tell me before?" "It's just for when it gets really bad," Leo explained, unconcerned. "I haven't needed it lately." "Still, we should have it," Brendan said, already reaching for his phone to call his assistant. Then he paused, considering. This was something he should handle personally. "How about we go to your apartment today and pick up whatever you need?" The twins exchanged a look, then nodded eagerly. An hour later, Brendan's driver parked outside. A modest apartment building in a developing neighborhood across town. As different from his luxury high-rise as possible, the brick building had window boxes filled with flowers and children's bicycles chained near the entrance. "We're on the third floor," Leo announced, leading the way with the confidence of routine. "Apartment 3B. Standing before Jesse's door, Brendan hesitated. This felt like crossing a threshold beyond mere physical space, entering the life she had built without him, the home where she had raised their children. Lily solved his dilemma by pulling a key from her unicorn backpack. "Mommy lets me carry the spare key because I'm responsible," she explained solemnly. Inside, Brendan found himself in a world that was quintessentially Jesse. Warm colors, bookshelves overflowing with volumes on art, history, and children's literature, plants in colorful pots, walls decorated with a mixture of professional artwork and children's creations. A far cry from his minimalist penthouse, this space felt truly lived in, infused with personality and love. "I'll get my medicine," Leo called, heading toward what must be the bathroom. "And I'll get Sparkles and Mr. Whiskers," Lily added, disappearing into a bedroom. Left alone, Brendan moved slowly through the living room, absorbing details of the life Jesse had created. Photos lined the mantel above a small fireplace, the twins at various ages, from infancy to recent months. His heart constricted at the tiny newborns in matching yellow hats, at the toddlers taking first steps, at school portraits showing their growing resemblance to both him and Jesse. 5 years of moments he should have shared. A framed certificate caught his eye. Jessie Liu, Executive Director, Rainbow Bridge Community Arts Center. She had achieved her dream after all. Pride mingled with regret in his chest. "That's where Mommy works," Leo said, returning with an inhaler. "We go there after school. There's lots of kids and art stuff." "It sounds wonderful," Brendan replied, careful to keep his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Your mom always wanted to create a place like that." "How do you know?" Lily asked, reappearing with 2 well-loved stuffed animals, a sparkly unicorn and a grey cat missing one eye. The innocent question left Brendan momentarily speechless. How much should he tell them? How much could they understand? "Your mom and I used to talk about our dreams," he said finally. "A long time ago. Were you her boyfriend?" Leo asked with a child's directness. Brendan nodded, his throat tight. "Yes, I was." "She keeps a picture of a man in her special box," Lily informed him, hugging her unicorn to her chest. "Sometimes she looks at it when she thinks we're sleeping." "A special box," Brendan echoed, his heart suddenly racing. "It's under her bed," Leo said. "We're not supposed to touch it, but we peeked once. It has letters and pictures and stuff under her bed. The most cliched hiding place, yet perfect in its simplicity." Brendan glanced toward what must be Jesse's bedroom, the door slightly ajar. "Why don't you both pack some clothes and toys while I check if there's anything we need from your mom's room? Maybe bills that need to be paid or important papers." The twins agreed easily, returning to their shared bedroom while Brendan approached Jesse's door with trepidation. Opening it felt like an invasion of privacy, yet he was drawn forward by an inexorable need to understand. Her bedroom was simply furnished, but deeply personal. Books stacked on the nightstand, a colorful quilt that he recognized with a jolt. They had purchased it together at an art fair in their first year dating. A silver frame on the dresser held a photo of the twins as infants. Kneeling beside the bed, Brendan reached underneath, his fingers finding a wooden box about the size of a shoebox. He pulled it out, his hands trembling slightly as he removed the lid. Inside, neatly organized, lay the physical artifacts of their shared past and of the years that followed. Concert ticket stubs from shows they'd attended together. The smooth stone he'd given her from the beach where they'd first said, "I love you." a pressed flower from the bouquet he'd brought to apologize after their first serious argument, and photographs. Dozens of them spanning their relationship, Brendan and Jessie laughing in the rain, sitting on his apartment rooftop watching fireworks, dancing at his company's launch party, her blue dress swirling around her legs. But it was the stack of envelopes beneath these mementos that drew his attention, envelopes addressed to him in Jessie's distinctive handwriting, but never sent. With shaking hands, Brendan withdrew the first letter, dated just weeks after she had disappeared from his life. The paper was slightly crinkled, as if it had been dampened and dried, by tears perhaps. Dearest Brendan, it's been 23 days since I left, and every one of them has been torture. I keep reaching for the phone to call you, but then remember why I can't, why I shouldn't. I'm pregnant. Twins, the doctor says. I saw them on the ultrasound today, 2 tiny heartbeats flickering like distant stars. Our children, Brendan, yours and mine. You might wonder why I didn't tell you before leaving. The truth is, I overheard your conversation with the board members that night after the gala, about the 5-year expansion plan, about how children and family would derail everything you've worked for, how you wanted to wait until your company was established before complicating your life with dependents. I couldn't be the reason your dreams were deferred or destroyed. I've seen what resentment does to families, how children sense when they're considered burdens rather than blessings. I couldn't bear the thought of our children feeling that way, or of you sacrificing your vision because of an unexpected pregnancy. So I made the hardest choice of my life, to leave before you had to choose between your dreams and mine, between your future and these tiny lives we created. I love you too much to diminish your light, Brendan. That's what real love is. Wanting the other person's highest good, even when it breaks your heart. Forever yours, Jessie. Brendan's vision blurred as he finished reading, memories rushing back of that board meeting, how he had parroted his mentors, advice about delayed family planning without truly examining his own desires, words spoken carelessly that had altered the course of 3 lives, now 5. He reached for the next letter, dated several months later. Brendan, the twins were born yesterday. A boy and a girl, perfect in every way. The boy has your eyes exactly, right down to those gold flecks around the pupils. The girl has your smile. And my hair. They're beautiful, Brendan. You would be so proud. I've named them Leopold Brendan and Lily Rose. Leo and Lily. I hope you don't mind that I gave our son your name. Somehow it felt right that he should carry a piece of you with him. Always the nurses asked about their father. I told them he was a brilliant, kind man who would have loved them very much if he had known them. It wasn't a lie. I saw your company's breakthrough made the national news. The medical imaging technology you developed is going to save countless lives. I cut out the article for the twins' memory box. Someday they'll know their father changed the world. I miss you every day, Jessie. Letter after letter chronicled the twins' lives. First smiles, first words, first steps. Jessie's struggles as a single mother working multiple jobs while pursuing her dream of opening the art center, her pride in the children's milestones, her loneliness on holidays, her determination to give them everything despite limited resources. The most recent letter was dated just 3 weeks ago. My dearest Brendan, the twins turn 6 next month. 6 years since I made the choice that changed all our lives. 6 years of wondering whether I did the right thing. Your company has become everything you dreamed, even more. I see your face on business magazines at the grocery store checkout. I hear about your innovations changing healthcare worldwide. You've achieved everything you set out to do and more. Would that have been possible with 2 unexpected children and a struggling artist for a partner? I still don't know, but the twins are asking more questions about their father now. They deserve more than vague answers and hidden photographs. They deserve to know the remarkable man whose blood runs in their veins, whose generosity of spirit and brilliant mind I see reflected in them every day. I've decided to contact you after their birthday. Whatever your response, anger, indifference, legal action, I'll accept it. But they deserve the chance to know you, and you deserve to know them. They are your greatest achievement, Brendan, though you don't know it yet. Greater than any company or innovation. They are the best of you and me, combined in miraculous ways. I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. Always, Jessie. Brendan lowered the letter, his face wet with tears he hadn't realized were falling. The truth hit him with stunning clarity. She hadn't abandoned him out of indifference or callousness. She had left out of love. A selfless, sacrificial love that prioritized his dreams and their children's well-being above her own happiness. And she had been planning to contact him. If not for the accident, he might have received a call or letter within weeks. The timing was almost cruel in its irony. "Mr. Brendan?" Leo's voice startled him. The boy stood in the doorway, watching with solemn eyes. "Are you crying?" Brendan quickly wiped his face, but didn't deny it. "Sometimes adults cry when they feel a lot of things at once," he explained, carefully returning the letters to their envelopes. Leo approached, his small hand coming to rest on Brendan's shoulder with surprising tenderness. "Mommy says it's good to cry sometimes. It means your heart is working right." "Your mom is very wise," Brendan replied, his voice thick with emotion. Leo's gaze fell to the box of mementos. "That's her special box. We're not supposed to look inside." "I know. I shouldn't have opened it without permission," Brendan admitted. "But sometimes, to help someone, you need to know their secrets." The boy seemed to consider this, then nodded, as if accepting the explanation. "Did you find out how to help Mommy?" "I think maybe I did," Brendan said softly, replacing the box exactly where he'd found it. "I learned that your mum loves you and your sister more than anything in the world." "We know that already," Leo said with the innocent certainty of a child, secure in his parents' love. "She tells us every day." As they finished gathering the twins' belongings, Brendan's mind raced with revelations. The twins weren't just his biological children. They carried his name, knew stories about him, had been taught to respect and admire him even in his absence. Jessie had given them roots and identity, despite the circumstances of their separation, and she had never stopped loving him, just as he had never truly stopped loving her. On the drive back to his penthouse, Brendan made a silent vow to the woman fighting for her life in that hospital bed. If she recovered, when she recovered, he would prove himself worthy of the love and sacrifice she'd shown. He would be the father these children deserved, and the partner she had always believed he could be. And if fate was cruel enough to take her from them, he would make sure her children never forgot the remarkable woman who had loved them enough to make the hardest choice of all. Chapter 5. Heart's Recognition. The penthouse had changed in just 1 week. Colorful artwork now adorned walls that had previously displayed only abstract minimalist pieces. Toys were organized in decorative bins where design magazines had once been meticulously arranged. Family photos, newly printed from Jessie's digital albums, stood in simple frames on surfaces that had previously held only the most tasteful decorative objects. Brendan sat at his dining table, now covered with breakfast dishes and children's drawings rather than spread financial reports, watching as Leo carefully constructed a tower of blocks while Lily created a watercolor masterpiece beside him. The morning sun illuminated their faces, highlighting the features they had inherited. From him, Leo's determined concentration, Lily's creative intensity, his children. The DNA test results had arrived yesterday, confirming what his heart already knew. Leopold Brendan and Lily Rose Lou were unquestionably his biological children, sharing his rare blood type and genetic markers that left no room for doubt. "Mr. Brendan," Lily said, looking up from her painting. Can we video call Miss Angela today? She runs the art classes when Mommy's busy, and she said she would read us a story. Of course, Brendan replied, making a mental note to contact the assistant director of Jessie's art centre. He had already spoken with her several times, arranging for the centre to continue operating in Jessie's absence and ensuring all employees would be paid. And I was thinking we might visit your school today to pick up your assignments and let your teachers know you're okay. Leo looked up from his block tower, a shadow of worry crossing his face. Will we have to tell them about Mommy? They already know, Brendan said gently, but we can tell them that she's getting stronger every day. It wasn't exactly a lie. The doctors had reported marginal improvements in Jessie's condition, though. She remained in the coma. Are you coming with us to school? Lily asked, her eyes brightening at the prospect. Absolutely, Brendan assured her, surprised by how much he was looking forward to this mundane parental duty. His assistant had nearly fainted when he'd blocked out his entire day for a school visit and playground outing. The CEO, who once rescheduled his own birthday dinner for an emergency board meeting, was now prioritizing finger painting and jungle, gyms over international conference calls, and strangely, it felt right. After breakfast, he helped the twins get ready, marveling at the routine they had established in such a short time. Leo methodically laid out his clothes in a specific order, insisting on dressing himself with just a little help with buttons. Lily chattered through her entire process, creating stories about her clothing choices and asking Brendan to brush her curls, just like Mommy does. These small moments of trust and connection had become precious to him, each one a gift he hadn't known to want before they arrived in his life. As Brendan helped Leo tie his shoelaces, he noticed the boy watching him with that penetrating gaze so reminiscent of his own. You do it just like I do, Leo observed. From the bottom up instead of the top down. Brendan's hands stilled for a moment. It was true. He had always tied his laces in this somewhat unconventional way, a habit his mother had tried and failed to correct in his childhood. I guess great minds think alike, he said lightly, though the implication wasn't lost on him. Another genetic trait passed down, another connection beyond mere biology. The twins' elementary school was a cheerful building with colorful murals decorating its exterior walls. One of them signed with Jessie's distinctive signature, he noticed, with a pang. Inside, they were greeted warmly by staff clearly concerned about their well-being. Mr. McKeon, the principal said, shaking his hand firmly, we're so glad to meet you, though we wish it were under better circumstances. The twins have been telling us all about staying in your sky castle. It's been an adjustment for all of us, Brendan admitted, but they're incredible children. That's Jessie's influence, the principal said with warm certainty. She's one of our most involved parents, despite her busy schedule. She never misses a school event or parent conference. The casual praise of Jessie's parenting, coming from a professional who observed dozens of families, filled Brendan with both admiration for the mother she had become and regret for all he had missed. While he had been building a corporate empire, she had been laying the foundation of something far more valuable. As they toured the school, pride swelled in his chest, watching the twins interact with their teachers and classmates. They were well-liked, academically strong, and emotionally secure, a testament to Jessie's parenting despite challenging circumstances. In Leo's classroom, the teacher showed Brendan a science project the boy had created, a solar system model with detailed research notes written in careful handwriting. Leo has an exceptional analytical mind, she explained. He approaches problems methodically and thinks through all possibilities before proceeding, quite remarkable for his age. In Lily's classroom, her art was displayed prominently, vibrant, paintings showing creativity and technical skill beyond her years. She has her mother's artistic talent, the art teacher commented, but there's something in her approach to composition, the way she structures her work, that's quite different from Jessie's style. More structured, Brendan supplied, recognizing in Lily's artwork the same organizational principles he applied to his own projects and designs. The teacher nodded. Exactly. A perfect balance of creativity and precision. By the time they left the school with assignments and well wishes for Jessie, Brendan felt as though he had glimpsed another dimension of his children's lives, and by extension, of Jessie's life as a mother. The person she had become in his absence was even more remarkable than the woman he had loved. That afternoon, after a promised trip to the playground where the twins gleefully demonstrated their climbing abilities, they returned to the penthouse for lunch. As they ate sandwiches cut into shapes at Lily's insistence, Brendan's phone rang with the hospital's number. His heart skipped a beat as he answered, stepping away from the table. "Brendan McKeon speaking." "Mr. McKeon, this is Dr. Martinez. I wanted to update you personally on Miss Lou's condition." "Has something changed?" Brendan asked, his grip tightening on the phone. "We've been gradually reducing her sedation over the past few days, and her brain activity is showing positive responses. We'd like to try bringing her fully out of the medically induced coma tomorrow morning, if you'd like to be present." "Yes," Brendan said immediately. "Yes, I'll be there. Should I bring the children?" There was a slight hesitation on the other end. "Perhaps not initially. While we're hopeful for a positive response, patients coming out of comas can be disoriented or agitated. It might be better for the children to wait until she's stabilized." After ending the call, Brendan returned to the twins, his mind racing. Should he tell them? Create hope that might be crushed if Jessie didn't wake up as expected, or keep the information to himself until there was certainty? "Was that the doctor?" Lily asked, her intuition sharp as always. "About Mommy?" Brendan took a deep breath, choosing honesty. "Yes, it was. The doctors think your mom might be ready to wake up soon. Tomorrow, maybe." The twins' faces lit up with identical expressions of joy and hope. "Really?" Leo asked, bouncing slightly in his chair. "Can we go see her right away?" "The doctors think it's better if I go first," Brendan explained gently. "Sometimes when people wake up after being asleep for a long time, they're confused and need time to remember where they are. But as soon as your mom is ready for visitors, you'll be the first to see her." That evening, after tucking the twins into bed with extra stories and reassurances, Brendan found himself standing in his home office, staring out at the city lights. Tomorrow might change everything. Again. If Jessie woke up, what then? Would she be angry that he had inserted himself into their children's lives? Grateful for his help? What would he say to explain the past 5 years of absence? His reflection stared back at him from the darkened window. The successful CEO, the man who had everything and nothing until a week ago. Now, he was someone else. Entirely a father, a caretaker, a man rediscovering parts of himself long buried beneath ambition and achievement. Sleep proved elusive that night. Brendan found himself checking on the twins repeatedly, drawn to the peaceful sight of their slumber. Around midnight, a small sound from their room brought him to their doorway once more. Lily sat up in bed, tears streaming down her face. A nightmare, perhaps. "Hey, Princess," he whispered, approaching carefully. "What's wrong? What if Mommy doesn't remember us?" she asked, her voice small and frightened. "My friend Tyler's grandpa woke up in the hospital and didn't know anybody." Brendan sat on the edge of her bed, his heart aching at her fear. "Your mum could never forget you," he assured her. "You and Leo are in her heart, not just her memory. And love doesn't forget even when minds get confused. Promise?" she asked, her small fingers wrapping around his larger ones. "I promise," he said, surprised by his own certainty. If there was one thing he knew about Jessie Lou, it was the depth of her capacity to love. Nothing, not even brain injury, could erase what was fundamental to her being. As he held Lily's hand until she drifted back to sleep, Brendan felt a strange sense of peace descend. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together, the four of them, a family created by chance and choice and the undeniable pull of hearts recognizing their own. Morning arrived with nervous energy permeating the penthouse. Brendan prepared. Breakfast mechanically, his mind already at the hospital, where doctors would be preparing to bring Jessie out of sedation. The twins, sensing the importance of the day, were on their best behavior, getting ready for school without complaint. Miranda, "We'll pick you up this afternoon," Brendan explained as he walked them to their classrooms. His assistant had surprised him with her enthusiastic offer to help with the children, revealing a maternal side he'd never glimpsed beneath her efficient exterior. "And then you'll come to the hospital when your mom is ready for visitors. Tell Mommy we love her very much," Leo instructed solemnly, "and that we've been good, and that we miss her stories," Lily added, "and her special pancakes." "I'll tell her everything," Brendan promised, kneeling to hug them both, these miraculous beings who had transformed his life in a single week. At the hospital, Dr. Martinez met him outside Jessie's room. "We've stopped the sedation completely, and her vital signs are strong. Now we wait." Inside, Jessie looked much as she had for the past week, though some of the tubes and monitors had been removed. The bruising on her face had faded to yellowish shadows, and her dark curls had been neatly brushed by one of the nurses. Brendan took his now familiar place beside her bed, reaching for her hand as he had each day. But this time, he spoke with greater urgency. "Jessie, it's Brendan. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Leo and Lily are safe. They're incredible, Jessie, smart and kind and so much like you." His voice caught. "They miss you. We all do. It's time to come back to us now." Hours passed with no change. Nurses came and went, checking vitals and adjusting equipment. Brendan remained, sometimes speaking to her about the twins, sometimes sitting in silence, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand, as he had done years ago when they sat together watching sunsets. Around noon, a subtle change. Her fingers twitched against his palm. Brendan leaned forward, heart pounding. "Jessie." Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. "She's responding to stimuli," the nurse explained, checking her pupils with a small light. "It's a good sign, but waking can be a gradual process." Another hour passed. Brendan continued his quiet vigil, recounting stories of the past week with the twins. Leo's methodical approach to breakfast cereal, Lily's artistic creations covering his refrigerator, their shared habit of sleeping with their arms raised. "Above their heads. They're so clearly ours, Jessie," he whispered. "I see you in them every day. I see us." As if responding to his voice, Jessie's eyes finally opened, those remarkable eyes that had captured his heart from their first meeting. They were unfocused at first, blinking against the light. "Jessie," he said again, hardly daring to hope. Her gaze slowly found his face, confusion evident as she tried to place him in her disoriented state. The monitor beside her bed registered an increased heart rate. "It's okay," Brendan soothed. "You're in the hospital. You were in an accident, but you're going to be all right." Recognition dawned in her eyes, followed immediately by panic. Her lips moved, forming a word with no sound. Brendan leaned closer. "The twins," she managed, her voice barely audible after weeks of disuse. "My babies." "They're safe," he assured her quickly. "Leo and Lily are perfectly fine. They're at school right now." Relief flooded her features, followed by growing awareness of who was speaking to her. Her eyes widened as full recognition set in. "Brendan," she whispered, as if saying a name from a dream. He nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. "How?" Her voice faded, the effort of speaking clearly exhausting. "I was at the hospital for a meeting when they were brought in," he explained gently. They've been staying with me while you recover." Confusion, followed by understanding, crossed her face. Her gaze searched his, asking the question she couldn't voice. "Yes, I know," he confirmed softly. "I know they're mine, ours." Tears filled her eyes, spilling onto her cheeks. Whether from relief, fear, or some combination of emotions, Brendan couldn't tell. He reached up to wipe them away with gentle fingers. "We'll figure everything out," he promised. "But right now all that matters is that you're awake. The twins have been so brave, Jessie. You'd be proud of them." "You've been—" she began, struggling to form the words. "Taking care of them? Yes. Getting to know them. They're amazing, Jessie. You've done an incredible job." A small smile touched her lips, the first he'd seen in over 5 years. It transformed her face despite the pallor and lingering bruises, reminding him with stunning clarity of everything he had lost and might now have found again. "Rest now," he told her, sensing her exhaustion. "The kids will be so excited to see you later if you're up to it." Her eyelids drooped, but her fingers tightened around his in a silent request for him to stay. Brendan squeezed back gently, a promise without words. As she drifted back to sleep, natural sleep this time, not the artificial unconsciousness of the coma, Brendan felt something shift and settle in his chest. The recognition of what truly mattered, of who truly mattered, the woman who had given him 2 precious children, the family he never knew he had, the future he hadn't dared to imagine. Until now. Chapter 6. Awakening to Love. Sunlight streamed through the hospital window, casting a golden glow across Jessie's bed. 3 days had passed since she had first opened her eyes, each day bringing improved strength and clarity. The doctors were amazed by her progress, attributing it to her youth, overall good health, and remarkable determination. Brendan stood in the doorway, momentarily unnoticed, watching as Jessie spoke softly with Dr. Martinez. Even in a hospital, gown with her dark curls pulled back in a simple ponytail, she took his breath away. The same effect she'd had on him from their first meeting 5 years ago. "Well, Ms. Liu, I'm pleased with your recovery so far," the doctor was saying. "Your neurological responses are excellent, and the fractures are healing well. I think we can discuss discharge planning in the next few days." "Thank you, Doctor," Jessie replied, her voice stronger than yesterday but still carrying the softness of exhaustion. "I appreciate everything you've done." As the doctor turned to leave, he nodded to Brendan with quiet approval. They had spoken earlier about Jessie's remarkable progress, though the road to full recovery would still be long. "Good morning," Brendan said, stepping into the room with a small bouquet of gardenias, Jessie's favorite flowers that he'd sent his assistant across town to find. "You're looking better today." Her eyes met his, filled with a complex mixture of emotions he couldn't fully decipher. "Thank you," she said, accepting the flowers and breathing in their fragrance. "They're still my favorite." "You remembered." "I remember everything," he admitted quietly, taking the seat beside her bed that had become his over the past weeks. A silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with unspoken words. For the first time since her awakening, they were truly alone. No doctors, no nurses, no twins demanding attention with their boundless energy. "The children," she began, her fingers nervously adjusting the blanket across her lap. "How are they really doing with all this?" "They're incredible, Jessie. Resilient and brave and so full of love." Brendan leaned forward, his voice earnest. "They miss you terribly, but they've adapted to staying with me better than I could have hoped." "You've been caring for them all this time," she said, not quite a question. "Taking them to school, making meals, bedtime stories." "Yes," he confirmed, "though I had a lot of help at first. My assistant Miranda has been surprisingly good with Them, and they've been patient teachers about their routines and preferences. A small smile touched Jessie's lips. I bet Lily insisted on the right bedtime stories in the exact right order, and Leo organized his cereal by color before eating it, Brendan added, returning her smile, just like I used to do with M&Ms. The observation hung between them, highlighting what they both knew but hadn't directly addressed. You know, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, about them, about... That they're mine, Brendan completed gently. Yes, I had a DNA test done for the custody arrangements, but honestly, I knew the moment I really looked at them. Leo has my eyes exactly, and Lily makes the same expression I do when she's concentrating on something difficult. Tears filled Jessie's eyes, spilling onto her cheeks before she could stop them. I never meant for you to find out this way, she whispered. I was going to tell you after their birthday next month. I had it all planned. Brendan reached for her hand, his larger one enveloping her slender fingers with gentle pressure. I know. I found your letters. Her eyes widened. You went to the apartment. The twins needed clothes and Leo's asthma medicine. I found the box under your bed. He paused, gathering courage for what needed to be said. Jessie, why didn't you tell me? We could have figured something out together. She looked down at their joined hands, her thumb unconsciously stroking his knuckles, as she had done countless times during their relationship. I overheard you that night, talking to the board about the 5-year expansion plan, how children would derail everything you'd worked for. She met his gaze directly now, her eyes reflective rather than accusatory. I was going to tell you about the pregnancy that weekend. I had it all planned out, a special dinner, a gift with baby shoes. But after hearing how you felt about family potentially holding you back, I couldn't bear the thought of forcing you to choose. So you chose. For me, Brendan said softly, no judgment in his tone. I thought I was being selfless, she admitted. Looking back now, I see it was also fear. Fear that you might choose your company over us, or worse, that you might choose us, but grow to resent the sacrifice. Brendan was silent for a long moment, processing her words. How many times had he pictured this conversation over the past weeks? Yet now that it was happening, he found his prepared speeches inadequate for the emotions swirling between them. I wish you had trusted me enough to talk to me, he said finally. What you overheard was me parroting my mentor's advice about delayed family planning. I never examined whether I actually believed it myself. The truth is, I had already picked out a ring. I was going to propose that same weekend you were planning to tell me about the pregnancy. Jessie's face registered shock, followed by a pain so profound it physically hurt him to witness. We were so close to a completely different life, she whispered. I looked for you, Brendan continued, for months. But you'd changed your phone number, left your job, moved from your apartment. None of our mutual friends knew where you'd gone. I was afraid I'd weaken if I stayed connected to our old life, she admitted, that I'd give in and call you, burden you with a responsibility you weren't ready for. It wouldn't have been a burden, Jessie. It would have been a gift. His voice broke slightly on the words. These past few weeks with Leo and Lily have shown me what I've been missing all these years. Not just them, but the man I become when I'm with them. A better version of myself. Fresh tears filled her eyes, but before she could respond, excited voices echoed from the hallway. Mom, we brought you something! The twins burst into the room, each carrying small paper bags decorated with colorful drawings. The intimate moment between Brendan and Jessie dissolved as the children bounded onto the bed, careful of their mother's injuries, but unable to contain their excitement. Gentle, remember, Brendan reminded, watching as Jessie's expression transformed from emotional vulnerability to pure maternal love. We made you get better presents, Lily announced, presenting her bag with flourish. With help from Mr. Brendan, Leo added, giving credit with his characteristic fairness. As the twins showered their mother with handmade gifts and detailed stories of their morning at school, Brendan watched the interaction with a full heart. Their conversation wasn't finished, not by a long shot. There were years of separation to discuss, misunderstandings to clarify, and a future to cautiously consider. But seeing Jessie with their children, her eyes alight with love despite her physical pain, her attention fully focused on their excited chatter, Brendan felt a certainty he hadn't experienced in years. Whatever happened next, the four of them were inextricably connected, not just by biology or circumstance, but by something deeper, something that felt remarkably like family. Chapter 7, Healing Together. Home sweet home, Brendan said softly as he pushed open the door to his penthouse, wheeling Jessie in the hospital-mandated wheelchair. After 10 days in the hospital, she had finally been discharged with strict instructions for rest and physical therapy. The twins raced ahead, excited to show their mother all the changes they had made to Brendan's once minimalist space. "Look, Mommy, this is where we sleep," Lily called, pulling Jessie's wheelchair toward what had once been Brendan's home office, now transformed into a cheerful bedroom with 2 child-sized beds. "And Mr. Brendan put up our drawings on the special wall," Leo added, pointing proudly to the kitchen, where a large magnetic board displayed their artwork. Jessie's eyes took in every detail, the children's books stacked neatly on once pristine shelves, the collection of stuffed animals arranged on the couch, the family photos Brendan had printed and framed. For a moment, her expression was unreadable. "You've made a home for them," she said finally, her voice soft with something that might have been wonder or gratitude, or perhaps both. "I tried," Brendan admitted, suddenly self-conscious about his efforts. "Though I had a lot of help. The twins were very specific about their requirements." A small smile touched Jessie's lips. "I'm sure they were." The past week had been filled with cautious conversations between hospital visits and childcare, discussions about practical matters like Jessie's recovery needs and the twins' routines. They had agreed that staying at Brendan's penthouse made the most sense logistically, at least during her initial recovery. His home was more accessible than her third-floor walk-up, and this arrangement would minimize disruption for the twins, who had already settled into a routine with him. But deeper conversations about their shared past and uncertain future had been postponed by unspoken mutual agreement. First, Jessie needed to heal physically. First, they needed to give the twins stability. First, they needed time. "We prepared your room," Brendan said, wheeling her toward his bedroom. "I'll be staying in the guest room." The master suite had been modified with Jessie's recovery in mind. A hospital bed had been installed alongside the existing king-sized bed, adjustable for comfort while her broken ribs and pelvis healed. Her favorite books from her apartment sat on the nightstand, along with framed photos of the twins and a vase filled with fresh flowers. "You've thought of everything," she observed, taking in the thoughtful details. "The physical therapist will come 3 times a week," Brendan explained, helping her from the wheelchair to the bed, as the twins watched with solemn attention from the doorway. "And I've rearranged my schedule to work from home most days." "You didn't have to do that," Jessie protested. "Your company can survive without my physical presence for a while," he interrupted gently. "I've discovered the world doesn't end if I delegate more responsibility. Actually, some of my executives are thriving with the additional trust." Jessie studied his face, as if searching for something. "You've changed," she said finally. Before Brendan could respond, the twins bounded onto the bed, careful of their mother's injuries, but unable to contain their excitement at having her home. "Can we have a movie night?" Lily asked, snuggling against Jessie's uninjured side. "With popcorn and blanket forts like we do at home?" "Maybe not a fort tonight," Brendan suggested, seeing Jessie's fatigue despite her attempts to hide it. "But we could watch a movie in here." The TV rotates so you can see it from bed, he added to Jessie. That evening set the pattern for the days that followed. The twins orbited between Brendan and Jessie, bringing homework for her to review, showing Brendan their latest art projects, creating a new family dynamic that none of them had experienced before. For Brendan, watching Jessie with their children was a revelation. Despite her physical limitations, her connection with them was beautiful to witness. The way she knew exactly what story would soothe Leo's frustration with a difficult math problem, how she could translate Lily's elaborate imaginative scenarios. When no one else could follow the plot, she was an extraordinary mother, patient, attentive, loving in both word and gesture. It was yet another dimension of the woman he had loved, evolved and deepened during their years apart. One evening, a week after Jessie's homecoming, Brendan entered the master bedroom with a tray of tea to find her sitting up in bed, looking through a portfolio of children's artwork. "From the art center?" he asked, setting the tray on the nightstand. She nodded, making room for him to sit on the edge of the bed. "The assistant director dropped them off today. The children made get-well cards." She showed him a particularly elaborate creation with layers of tissue paper and glitter. "They miss their classes." "They miss you," Brendan corrected gently. "The center is running smoothly with Angela in charge for now. I checked in yesterday." Jessie's expression softened with surprise. "You did?" "Of course. It's important to you and the twins, and to all those children who benefit from your programs." He hesitated, then added, "I'm impressed with what you've built there, Jessie. It's exactly what you always dreamed of creating." "Not exactly," she admitted with a small smile. "The original dream was much bigger. But I've learned to adapt my visions to reality." "Such as?" "Well, originally I imagined multiple locations throughout the city. Art therapy programs for hospitals, summer camping programs for underprivileged kids." She shrugged slightly, then winced at the movement. "Reality intervened. Single motherhood doesn't leave much time for empire building." "But you did it anyway," Brendan observed. "Maybe not the empire, but you created something meaningful and important while raising two incredible children." "While you were building an actual empire," she countered, but without bitterness. "Different paths," he acknowledged, "though I'm not sure mine was the better choice." Rain began to patter against the windows, the sudden shower typical of early autumn. The sound triggered a memory for both of them, evident in the way Jessie's eyes met his with startled recognition. "The boathouse," she said softly. Brendan nodded, remembering. Early in their relationship, they had been caught in a sudden downpour while rowing on the lake in the city park. Taking shelter in a small wooden boathouse, they had sat listening to rain drumming on the roof, talking for hours about their hopes and dreams while waiting out the storm. It was the first time they had said, "I love you," words whispered between rain-dampened kisses. "That was the day I knew," Brendan said quietly. "Knew what? That you were the one, that what we had was different from anything I'd experienced before." He looked down at his hands, then back to her face. "I never stopped loving you, Jessie. Even when I thought I should. Even when I tried." The admission hung between them, as gentle and persistent as the rain against the windows. Chapter 8. Love's Sweet Return. 3 weeks had passed since Jessie came home from the hospital. Autumn had fully arrived, painting the city in golds and crimsons visible from the penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside, warmth flourished as a new family rhythm emerged, one that seemed both novel and somehow familiar, as if they had always been meant to find this harmony together. Jessie's recovery progressed steadily. She had graduated from the wheelchair to a walker, and now moved carefully with just a cane, her determination evident in every painful but purposeful step during physical therapy sessions. The twins cheered her progress, creating construction, paper medals for each new milestone achieved. For Brendan, these weeks had been a revelation. The man who once measured success in stock prices and market share now found himself taking immense pride in perfectly packed school lunches and bedtime. Stories delivered with all the right voices. Most surprisingly, his company hadn't suffered from his reduced hours and remote work. If anything, the forced delegation had strengthened his executive team. This particular evening, after the twins had finally fallen asleep following multiple last stories and water requests, Brendan found Jessie on the penthouse balcony. She stood with her cane, wrapped in a thick cardigan against the autumn chill, gazing at the city lights below. "Should you be standing so long?" he asked, coming to stand beside her. "Probably not," she admitted with a small smile. "But the view called to me, and it feels good to be upright after so many weeks in bed." Brendan resisted the urge to support her, knowing her fierce independence. Instead, he simply stood close enough that she could lean against him if needed. "The city looks different from up here," she observed, "more like a constellation than a place where people actually live and work." "I used to think that was the point," Brendan admitted. "The distance, the perspective, seeing patterns instead of people. And now I find myself wondering about the stories behind each light, the families eating dinner together, the children complaining about homework, the everyday moments that matter more than I realized." Jessie glanced at him, studying his profile in the dim balcony lighting. "The twins have changed you." "Yes," he agreed, "but so have you." Again. A comfortable silence fell between them, filled only by the distant city sounds and the gentle autumn breeze. This was new for them, this ability to be together without filling every moment with words. In their previous relationship, they had been younger, more eager to express every thought and feeling. Now there was a maturity to their connection, a patience born of separate journeys and shared children. "I've been thinking about the art center," Jessie said finally. "Angela called today with an update. The fall fundraiser is approaching, and normally I'd be coordinating everything." "Do you want to go back?" Brendan asked, careful to keep his tone neutral despite the flutter of concern in his chest. The thought of her leaving, of disrupting the family unit they had begun to build, created an unexpected ache. "Not yet," she said. "Physically, I'm not ready, but I've been working on some ideas remotely, grant proposals, curriculum expansions." She hesitated, then added, "Actually, I wanted to ask your advice about something." "My advice?" "You do run a successful multi-billion-dollar company," she reminded him with a teasing smile. "I thought you might have some insights on scaling a non-profit arts program." The simple request, her willingness to include him in this significant part of her life, touched Brendan deeply. "I'd be honored to help," he said softly. As the evening chill deepened, Jessie shivered slightly. Without thinking, Brendan slipped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her gently against his side for warmth. She stiffened momentarily, then relaxed into the half-embrace, her head coming to rest naturally against his shoulder. The familiar weight of her, the scent of her hair, still the same lavender shampoo she had used years ago, sent a wave of longing through him so powerful it nearly took his breath away. How many evenings had they stood like this in his old apartment, planning their futures without knowing how drastically their paths would diverge? "Do you remember the night we met?" Jessie asked suddenly, as if following the same current of memory. Brendan smiled in the darkness. "The charity gala, you spilled champagne on my suit. And you were such a snob about it," she laughed softly, "all concerned about the expense when we were literally at an event to raise money for homeless children." "I was insufferable," he agreed. "You shocked me out of my complacency. And then you shocked me by asking for my number instead of sending me a dry cleaning bill." "Best decision I ever made," Brendan said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Jessie turned slightly to face him, still within the circle of his arm. In the city glow, her eyes searched his with a question he couldn't quite decipher. "Brendan," she began hesitantly, "what are we doing?" The simple question held worlds of complexity. What were they to each other now? Co-parents, friends, former, lovers finding their way back to something new? "I'm not sure," he answered honestly. "I just know that having you and the twins here feels right, in a way nothing has for 5 years. Her expression softened. "It does feel right," she admitted, "but it's complicated. We're different people now. I'm not the carefree art student you fell in love with, and you're not the ambitious entrepreneur with something to prove." "No," he agreed. "We're more now, deeper, tested." A gust of autumn wind swept across the balcony, causing Jessie to lean more heavily against him. Brendan tightened his arm around her, supporting her weight without comment. "We should go inside," he suggested. "You shouldn't get chilled during recovery." But neither moved, caught in the fragile moment between past and future, between caution and possibility. "The twins have been asking questions," Jessie said after a moment. "About us. About why you and I aren't like other parents." "What kind of questions?" "Leah wanted to know if you're going to be their real dad now or just a special friend. And Lily asked if we were going to have a sleepover in the same room like her friend's parents do." Brendan's heart quickened. "What did you tell them?" "That grown-up relationships are complicated. That we care about each other very much, but we're still figuring things out." She looked up at him. "Was that okay?" "It was perfect," he assured her. "Honest, but hopeful." The word hung between them. Hopeful. Were they allowed to hope for something more than a cordial co-parenting arrangement after all the misunderstandings and lost years? "I should get some rest," Jessie said finally, though she made no move to leave his side. "Physical therapy in the morning." "I'll walk you back," Brendan offered, still keeping his arm around her as they moved carefully through the balcony doors. In the hallway outside the master bedroom that had become Jessie's recovery room, they paused. The moment felt significant somehow, poised on the edge of something neither was quite ready to name. "Thank you," Jessie said softly. "Not just for tonight, but for everything. Taking in the twins, supporting the art center, making space in your life for us." "You don't need to thank me for loving my own children," Brendan replied, "or for caring about what matters to you." Their eyes met, and for a heart-stopping moment, Brendan thought he might lean down and kiss her. Thought she might. Welcome it even. But the sound of small footsteps interrupted the moment. "Mommy!" Lily appeared in the hallway, clutching her unicorn stuffed animal. "I had a scary dream." The spell broken, Jessie turned to their daughter with maternal concern. "Come on, sweetheart. You can tell me all about it." As Jessie guided Lily back to bed, Brendan watched them go with a mixture of disappointment and tenderness. Whatever was rekindling between him and Jessie would need to unfold at its own pace, with the twins' well-being at the center of every decision. Later that night, as Brendan lay awake in the guest room, his thoughts circled back to the almost moment. On the balcony, the way Jessie had felt in his arms, both familiar and new, the unspoken possibility humming between them. 5 years ago, he had lost her through careless words and unexamined priorities. This time, he would be patient. This time, he would listen more carefully, love more deliberately. This time, they had 2 perfect reasons to get it right. Chapter 9. Hearts Laid Bare. The autumn morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight streaming through the penthouse windows as Brendan helped the twins with breakfast. 6 weeks had passed since Jessie's accident, and their improvised family routine had taken on a comfortable familiarity. Jessie, now moving with only occasional use of her cane, sat at the kitchen island, reviewing grant proposals for the art center, while Brendan packed school lunches. "Remember, it's show and tell day," Lily reminded them, carefully selecting a painted rock from her collection to bring to class. And science club after school, Leo added, methodically spreading peanut butter to the very edges of his sandwich. Bread. The domestic tranquility of the scene was interrupted by the sharp ring of the doorbell, unusual for early morning in the secured building. "I'll get it," Brendan said, wiping his hands on a kitchen towel. "Probably just a package." When he opened the door, however, he found himself facing his mother, elegant as always, in a designer suit despite the early hour. Victoria McKeon rarely visited without advance notice, and her unexpected appearance immediately put Brendan on alert. "Mother," he greeted her, leaning down to accept her perfunctory cheek kiss. "This is a surprise." "Clearly," she replied, her keen eyes taking in his casual attire and the sounds of children's voices from the kitchen. "I've been trying to reach you for weeks, Brendan. Your assistant keeps telling me you're working from home indefinitely, which we both know is unlike you." Before Brendan could respond, the twins appeared in the hallway, curious about their visitor. "Who are you?" Lily asked with characteristic directness. Victoria's gaze fixed on the children, her expression shifting from surprise to careful assessment. "I'm Victoria McKeon, Brendan's mother." Her eyes narrowed slightly as she studied their features. "And you must be—" "I'm Leo. And this is my sister Lily," Leo offered politely. "We're staying here while our mum gets better." Understanding dawned in Victoria's eyes as she looked back at her son. "I see. Perhaps we should talk privately." "The twins need to finish breakfast before school," Brendan deflected, reluctant to engage in whatever conversation his mother clearly intended to have. "Why don't you join us in the kitchen?" In the kitchen, Jessie looked up from her work immediately, tensing at Victoria's arrival. Though they had never met, Brendan had shared enough about his mother for Jessie to recognize the formidable woman on sight. "Mother, this is Jessie Lou." Brendan made the introduction with deliberate casualness. "Jessie, my mother, Victoria McKeon." "Ms. Lou," Victoria acknowledged with a nod that managed to be both polite and coolly assessing. "I understand you've been recovering from an accident." "Yes," Jessie replied with equal politeness. "Brendan has been incredibly supportive during my recovery." A loaded silence fell as Victoria took in the domestic scene before her. The children's artwork magnetized to the refrigerator, Jessie's paperwork spread across the counter, the easy familiarity with which her son moved through the space alongside. This woman and her children. "Twins, we need to finish getting ready for school," Brendan said, sensing the building tension. "Leo, don't forget your science journal." "Lily, shoes on, please." With practiced efficiency, he guided the children through their morning routine, while Victoria watched with undisguised curiosity. Jessie gathered her papers, clearly uncomfortable under the older woman's scrutiny. "I should give you privacy for your visit," she said, reaching for her cane. "I'll be in my room if the twins need anything before they leave." "Nonsense," Victoria interjected smoothly. "I'd like to get to know you better, Ms. Lou. Perhaps after Brendan takes the children to school, we could have a chat?" The suggestion, delivered as a polite invitation but clearly a demand, sent a visible wave of apprehension through Jessie. Brendan stepped closer to her, his body language protective. "Mother, Jessie has physical therapy this morning," he began, but Jessie touched his arm lightly. "It's all right," she said quietly. "My appointment isn't until 10. We have time to talk." The journey to school seemed interminable to Brendan as his mind raced with concerns about leaving Jessie alone with his mother. Victoria McKeon was a formidable woman who had definite ideas about suitable partners for her only son, ideas that had always prioritized social connections and business advantages over emotional compatibility. "Is that lady really your mom?" Lily asked from the back seat. "She doesn't look like a grandma." Victoria would consider that a compliment, Brendan replied with a wry smile. "And yes, she's my mother, which makes her your grandmother technically. Will she like us?" Leo asked, his perceptiveness once again surprising Brendan. "She'll love you once she gets to know you," Brendan assured them. though privately he was less certain. Victoria had never shown particular interest in children, including her own son during his youth. "You're amazing kids, after all." After dropping the twins at school with extra tight hugs, Brendan returned to the penthouse with record speed. The silence that greeted him as he entered was concerning. No voices in conversation, no movement in the kitchen. He found them in the living room, Victoria perched elegantly on an armchair, while Jessie sat on the couch, her posture rigid despite her relaxed clothing. The atmosphere crackled with unspoken tension. "Brendan." His mother greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ms. Liu and I were just discussing the remarkable coincidence that brought you all together after so many years." "It wasn't a coincidence," Brendan corrected, moving to sit beside Jessie on the couch. "The twins were at the hospital because their mother was injured. I was there for a meeting about the Children's Wing funding." "Yes, such timing," Victoria mused. "And now you've established yourself as their caretaker, just as paternity has been confirmed. One might almost think it was orchestrated." Jessie's face paled. "Excuse me?" "Mother," Brendan warned, but Victoria continued smoothly. "You must understand my concern, Ms. Liu. My son is a wealthy, prominent bachelor who suddenly finds himself playing house with a woman who kept his own children secret for 6 years. It raises questions about motives." "That's enough," Brendan said sharply, but Jessie laid a restraining hand on his arm. "I understand your suspicion, Mrs. McKeon," she said with remarkable composure. "If I were in your position, I might have similar concerns. But I want to be clear. I never sought Brendan out. I never asked for financial support. I built a life for my children independently, and until the accident, I had every intention of continuing that way. Yet here you are, living in his penthouse, accepting his care," Victoria observed coolly. "At my insistence," Brendan interjected. "Jessie initially refused my offer. She agreed only because it was best for the twins during her recovery." Victoria turned her penetrating gaze to her son. "And what happens when she's fully recovered, Brendan? Have you thought that far ahead? Will you be content to return to weekend visitation like some divorced father, or perhaps you're entertaining more permanent arrangements?" The question hung in the air between them, voicing the uncertainty that Brendan and Jessie had carefully avoided addressing directly. "Whatever arrangements we make will be our decision," Brendan replied evenly, "based on what's best for Leo and Lily." "Children need stability," Victoria pressed. "They need parents who are committed to each other, not just to them." "I couldn't agree more," Jessie said quietly, "which is why I've never introduced them to anyone I've dated since their birth. They deserve parents who truly love each other, not just a convenient arrangement." The implication that she wouldn't stay with Brendan merely for the children's sake or financial security was clear. Victoria's expression registered surprise, followed by a reluctant reassessment of the woman before her. "I should check on my therapy schedule," Jessie said, rising carefully from the couch. "It was interesting to meet you, Mrs. McKeon." When she had left the room, Victoria turned to her son with raised eyebrows. "Well, she has spirit, I'll grant her that. She has integrity, courage, and more love in her heart than anyone I've ever known," Brendan corrected firmly. "She raised our children alone while building a non-profit art center for underprivileged kids, refusing to contact me because she thought it would interfere with my ambitions. And you believe that was her real reason? Not fear that you would reject her? Or calculation about when to reveal her hand? I've read her letters, Mother. I've seen how she lived. There was no calculation, only sacrifice." Brendan leaned forward, his voice intense. "She was planning to contact me after the twins' birthday next month. The accident only accelerated our reunion." Victoria studied her son's face with the shrewd assessment that had made her formidable in both business and social circles. "You're in love with her still," she stated, rather than asked. After all these years. I never stopped, Brendan admitted quietly. Even when I thought I should. Victoria sighed, adjusting her bracelet with practiced elegance. Love isn't always enough, Brendan. You know that. There are practical considerations, legal, financial, social. I don't care about any of that. You should. Those children, your children, deserve protection, legal recognition, inheritance rights, social standing. They'll have all of that, Brendan assured her, whether Jessie and I are together or not. And what do you want? Victoria asked, her voice softer now, showing a rare glimpse of genuine maternal concern. Brendan looked toward the hallway where Jessie had disappeared. I want my family, he said simply. The family I didn't know I had until 6 weeks ago. The family I would have had all along if I'd been more careful with my words, more honest about my priorities. Victoria was silent for a long moment, considering. Then she reached for her handbag, a signal that the conversation was concluding. Your father would be surprised, she said finally. He always thought you took after him. Ambition before sentiment. But perhaps you're more like me than either of us realized. Like you? Brendan echoed, surprised. A small, wistful smile crossed Victoria's usually composed features. I gave up a promising legal career to marry your father and raise you. It wasn't a sacrifice everyone understood or approved of, but I never regretted choosing love over ambition. The revelation that his mother's characteristic perfectionism and social striving might have stemmed from channeling frustrated professional ambitions shifted something in Brendan's understanding of his childhood. I should go, Victoria said, rising gracefully. I have a foundation meeting at noon, but I'd like to have dinner with all of you soon, get to know my grandchildren properly. After his mother departed, Brendan found Jessie in the master bedroom, sitting at the window seat with her gaze fixed on the city below. I'm sorry about that, he said, joining her. My mother can be protective, Jessie supplied. She loves you. In her way, Brendan agreed. A silence fell between them, comfortable at first, then increasingly weighed with unspoken thoughts. She wasn't entirely wrong, Jessie said finally, her voice soft but steady. We haven't really talked about what happens next, about our arrangement once I'm fully recovered. What do you want to happen? Brendan asked, his heart speeding up. As he finally voiced the question they had been circling for weeks, Jessie turned to face him, her dark eyes serious. I want what's best for the twins. They love being here with you. They're thriving with both of us in their lives. But that's not what I asked, Brendan said gently. What do you want, Jessie? Not as a mother, but as a woman. Her eyes glistened, suddenly with unshed tears. That's the problem, isn't it? I've been a mother for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be just a woman anymore. I remember, Brendan said, reaching for her hand. I remember the woman who challenged me to see beyond my privilege, who taught me that true wealth is measured in human connection, not dollar signs, who loved fiercely and completely, holding nothing back. That woman didn't have children dependent on her choices, Jessie whispered. She could afford to risk her heart. And now I'm terrified, she admitted, the raw honesty in her voice striking him to the core. Terrified that if we try to be a family, a couple, and it doesn't work, the twins will be devastated. They already love you so much, Brendan. If they lost you, they won't lose me, he promised. No matter what happens between us, I will always be their father. And if we try, and you realize that domesticity isn't what you imagined, if you miss your freedom, your old life. Brendan recognized the fear behind her questions, the same fear that had driven her to leave 6 years ago, rather than risk being resented. Jessie, he said, taking both her hands in his, these past weeks with you and the twins have been the happiest of my life, not because it's been easy or perfect, but because it's been real. Messy breakfast conversations, bedtime negotiations, school projects and sibling squabbles and all of it. I don't miss my old life. I don't even recognize the man I was before you three came back into my heart. Tears spilled onto her cheeks now, but she made no move to wipe them away. I'm afraid to believe you, she whispered. Afraid to hope for something I've dreamed about. For so long. Then let me prove it to you, Brendan said, releasing her hands to reach for his phone. Come with me tonight. There's something I want to show you. The twins. Miranda has already offered to stay with them, just for a couple of hours. Curiosity overcame her hesitation. Where? It's a surprise, he said with a gentle smile. But I promise it's worth braving my mother's interrogation this morning. That evening, after reassuring the twins that they would return before bedtime, Brendan drove Jessie across the city. The autumn sunset painted the sky in spectacular golds and crimsons, reflecting off glass buildings and turning ordinary streets into pathways of light. Where are we going? Jessie asked again as they left the downtown area, heading toward a developing neighborhood she didn't immediately recognize. Patience, Brendan replied with a mysterious smile. We're almost there. He pulled up before a construction site surrounded by chain-link fencing. A partially renovated building stood, illuminated by safety lights, its brick facade suggesting early 20th century industrial architecture now being reclaimed. What is this place? Jessie asked, as Brendan helped her from the car, making sure she had her cane for the uneven ground. This, he said, unlocking the fence gate with a key she hadn't known he possessed, is the future Rainbow Bridge Community Arts Center, or rather its expanded headquarters. Jessie stopped in her tracks, her expression one of complete shock. What? Come inside, he urged gently. It's more impressive in there. The interior was clearly under construction, but strategic lighting had been set up to showcase architectural features and newly created spaces. What had once been a factory floor was being transformed into multiple studio spaces. Former offices were becoming classrooms. The high ceilings and abundant windows would provide perfect natural light for artistic creation. I don't understand, Jessie said, turning slowly to take in the vast space. This building wasn't even for sale when I looked at expansion locations last year. It came on the market 2 weeks ago, Brendan explained. When you mentioned your original dream of multiple locations and expanded programs, I had my real estate division look into available properties near your current center. You bought this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The McKeon Foundation did, he clarified, as an investment in arts education for underserved communities. The foundation will own the building, but Rainbow Bridge will have a 99-year lease at $1 per year, with options for expansion into the adjacent property as your programs grow. Jessie's hand trembled as she reached out to touch a newly constructed wall. Why? Brendan moved to stand before her, his expression earnest and open. Because I believe in your vision, Jessie. Because those letters I found showed me how you never stopped dreaming even when resources were limited. Because every child deserves the chance to find their voice through art, the way you've helped Leo and Lily find theirs. Tears filled her eyes again, but these were different. Tears of wonder and overwhelming emotion. This is too much, Brendan. It's not a gift, he said carefully. It's an investment in something I believe in. The Foundation Board reviewed your organization's financials and program outcomes. This was approved based on merit, not personal connection. She studied his face, searching for the truth. But you made it happen. I opened a door, he acknowledged. You built everything that made walking through it possible. Jessie moved slowly through the space, trailing her fingers along walls and surfaces, as if to convince herself it was real. The children who come to our current center, they have so much talent, so much to express, but such limited resources. With this space, her voice trailed off as possibilities bloomed in her mind. You could reach hundreds more, Brendan finished for her. offer new programs, collaborations with schools, therapeutic art for trauma survivors. Everything you wrote about in those grant proposals I saw on your desk. You read my proposals? I wanted to understand your vision, he admitted. To see the dream through your eyes. Jessie turned to him, emotion written across her expressive features. No one has ever... She swallowed hard. No one has ever taken my dreams so seriously before. I should have 6 years ago, Brendan said softly. I should have seen that your ambitions were every bit as valid and important as mine, that we could have built our dreams together, side by side, supporting each other. I was young and foolish, and caught up in what success was supposed to look like. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. But I'm not that man anymore, Jessie. These weeks with you and the twins have shown me what really matters, what true success looks like. It looks like Leo's face when he masters a difficult math concept, like Lily's pride when she creates something beautiful, like your determination to rebuild your strength day by day in physical therapy. His voice grew husky with emotion. It looks like the family we could be, should have been all along, if we're brave enough to try again. Jessie's breath caught audibly. Are you saying... I'm saying I love you, Brendan declared, the words carrying all the certainty his heart had been building toward for weeks. I never stopped loving you, and I'm asking for the chance to prove that love every day, to you and to our children. Not with grand gestures like buildings, but with the small daily choices that show where my heart truly belongs. The moment hung between them, fragile and infinite. Then Jessie reached up, her hand trembling slightly as she touched his face with gentle fingertips. I never stopped loving you either, she whispered. Even when it hurt. Even when I thought I'd never. See you again. Brendan's heart soared at her words, but he could still see hesitation in her eyes. But love isn't always enough. She echoed Victoria's earlier sentiment. What if we try and fail? What if the reality of daily life together doesn't match? This beautiful moment. Then we'll work through it, Brendan promised. Together, one day at a time. He took her hand from his cheek and placed it over his heart. I'm not asking for forever tonight, Jessie. I'm just asking for a chance to build toward it. To show you and the twins that my love isn't conditional or temporary or based on some idealized version of family life. The twins will be overjoyed, Jessie said with a watery smile. They've been dropping increasingly unsubtle hints about us being real parents, like their friends have. And what about their mother? Brendan asked, his voice gentle but pressing. Would she be overjoyed too, or just cautiously optimistic? Jessie's smile deepened, reaching her eyes in a way that transformed her whole face. Their mother, she said softly, is terrified and exhilarated and hopeful, and completely in love with their father. Their mother wants to believe in second chances and dreams coming true. Brendan's heart felt too full for his chest to contain. Is that a yes to trying? Instead of answering with words, Jessie rose on tiptoes, her cane forgotten as she balanced against him, and pressed her lips to his in a kiss that spoke of 6 years of longing, of newfound hope, of a love that had never truly died, but instead had grown stronger through separation and sacrifice. When they finally parted, breathless and smiling, Brendan rested his forehead against hers. I'll take that as a yes, he murmured. It's a yes, she confirmed, her eyes shining with tears and laughter. Yes to trying, yes to building something new together, yes to showing our children what real love looks like. As they stood together in the space that represented both her dreams and his changed priorities, Brendan made a silent vow that this time would be different. This time, he would cherish what truly mattered. This time, they would build their life together, heart by heart, dream by dream, day by day. Chapter 10. Love's Eternal Promise. The winter morning dawned clear and bright. sunlight glittering across fresh snow as Brendan made final preparations for the day ahead. 3 months had passed since he and Jessie had committed to rebuilding their relationship, months filled with family dinners, bedtime stories, and quiet evenings spent rediscovering each other. Today marked the official opening of the expanded Rainbow Bridge Community Arts Center, Jessie's dream transformed into reality through her vision and his resources. But Brendan had planned something even more significant for this milestone day. "Are you ready?" he asked the twins, who sat at the kitchen counter reviewing their roles in his carefully orchestrated plan. Both nodded solemnly, their expressions showing the gravity with which they approached their special mission. "Remember," Leo said, "timing is critical for optimal impact." "And Mom can't suspect anything," Lily added, her eyes bright with excitement. Jessie entered the kitchen then, radiant in the deep blue dress she'd chosen for the opening ceremony. Her recovery was complete. All traces of the accident that had reunited them now faded into memory. What remained was stronger than before, not just her body, but her heart and their connection. "What are you three conspiring about?" she asked with a knowing smile. The past months had taught her to recognize when Brendan and the twins were planning some surprise. "Just reviewing the schedule for today," Brendan replied, stepping forward to kiss her softly. Even this brief contact sent warmth cascading through him. "You look beautiful." The drive to the arts center was filled with the twins' excited chatter about the student performances planned for the opening. Jessie listened attentively, though Brendan noticed the nervous energy in her fingers as they tapped against her purse. This day represented years of her work, culminating in something extraordinary. "It's going to be perfect," he assured her, taking her hand and bringing it to his lips. The renovated brick building stood transformed from the construction site of months ago. A colorful mosaic created by center students adorned the entrance, while the interior housed state-of-the-art studios, galleries, and classrooms. "We have an hour before the mayor arrives," Brendan said casually, after they'd completed a quick inspection. "I thought we might visit the park across the street first. The snowfall last night made it beautiful." Though Jessie gave him a curious look, she agreed readily enough. The small park had been part of their planning for the center, providing green space for outdoor classes in warmer weather. What she didn't know was how Brendan had transformed it overnight. "Look!" Lily exclaimed as they approached the park's center garden. "It's like a fairy house." A white wooden gazebo now stood where there had previously been only an open space. Winter greenery and twinkling lights adorned its frame, and within, something caught the morning light. Dozens of photographs hanging from delicate ribbons, gently swaying in the winter breeze. "Brendan!" Jessie's voice held wonder and question as they drew closer. "Let's take a look," he suggested, his heart accelerating. Months of planning had led to this moment. Inside the gazebo, the hanging photographs told their story. Brendan and Jessie in their early relationship, laughing in the rain, dancing under stars. The twins as newborns, as toddlers, as the remarkable 6-year-olds they now were. And most recently, the 4 of them together, ice skating, building forts, in the living room, creating the family that should have been all along. "Our story," Jessie whispered, moving slowly through the space, touching photos with gentle fingers. "Past, present, and future," Brendan completed, nodding to the twins. With practiced coordination, Leo and Lily reached into their coat pockets, producing small velvet boxes as they moved to stand on either side of their father. "Jessie," Brendan began, taking her hands in his as wonder bloomed across her beautiful face. "6 years ago, we lost our way through misunderstanding and circumstance. For 6 years, I built an empire while feeling emptier with each success. For 6 years, you raised our children with love and wisdom, creating both a family and a community legacy." He squeezed her hands gently, his eyes never leaving hers. "When fate brought us back together, I thought I was rescuing two children in need. Instead, they rescued me from a half-lived life. You rescued me by showing me what truly matters. The three of you saved each other, Jessie whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. And now, we want to save you too, Lily announced with childish earnestness. From not being officially family, Leo nodded solemnly. Statistical evidence shows children benefit from structured family units. A laugh bubbled through Jessie's tears at their characteristic approaches. Lily all heart, Leo all mind, both purely themselves. Brendan released Jessie's hands to reach into his pocket, withdrawing an aged velvet box that made her eyes widen. In recognition, I bought this 6 years ago, he confirmed. The weekend I planned to propose was the same weekend you were going to tell me about the pregnancy. It's been waiting all this time, just like my heart has been waiting for you. Opening the box revealed a vintage sapphire ring surrounded by delicate diamonds, the blue stone exactly matching her eyes. Kneeling before her in the snow-dusted gazebo, surrounded by the visual timeline of their love, Brendan looked up at the woman who had always held his heart. Jessie Lou, these past months have shown me that second chances are the most precious gift life offers. I love not just who you were when we first met, but who you've become. The strongest, most loving person I've ever known. Will you marry me? Will you make our family complete in every way? The twins could contain themselves no longer, moving, to stand beside him with hopeful expressions. Please say yes, Mommy, Lily pleaded. We practice this a lot. Dad was quite nervous about the statistical probability of acceptance, Leo added matter-of-factly. Jessie laughed through her tears, reaching out to touch each of their faces, her children and the man she had never stopped loving. Yes, she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. Yes to marriage, to family, to building our future together. As Brendan slipped the ring onto her finger, the twins erupted in cheers. When he stood, Jessie threw her arms around his neck, pulling him into a kiss that held 6 years of longing and newfound promise. We're going to be real parents now, Lily declared, hugging her brother. We already were, Leo corrected. This just makes it official. Brendan gathered them all into his embrace, the four of them holding each other close in the winter light. Beyond them, the art center stood waiting for its official opening, a dream realized through perseverance and vision. But here in this moment, an even greater dream was taking shape, a family united by love that had withstood time, distance, and misunderstanding. I love you, Brendan whispered against Jessie's hair. Always and forever. For always and forever, she echoed, her lips finding his once more as their children watched with joy, their family circle finally complete.